Howdo, my name is Andrew Hancock and I am a VMware technical architect from Yorkshire in the United Kingdom. I have worked with VMware since their birth in 1998, so that has been over 24 years I have been working with the VMware product catalogue. Some of my close colleagues say if you cut Andy in half, it reads VMware like a stick of rock from Blackpool. I have now written 134 articles and recorded 30 hours of VMware vSphere videos for Experts Exchange and received 40 Experts Exchange awards over the last 10 years working with the Experts Exchange community. I am currently the overall #1 point earner in the Hall of Fame at Experts Exchange. I am honoured to have been accepted into the VMware vExpert program since 2011 and more recently made a VMware vExpert Pro for the last 3 years. And welcome back to another Hancock's VMware half hour. And in this episode today, we're going to have a little look at installing and configuring VMware vSphere Hypervisor ESXi 8. And we're going to do a bare metal complete installation on a HPE ProLiant microserver Gen 8. In the previous video, you saw me do an in-place upgrade from ESXi 7.0.3, and we did that over ILO. And if you remember, it was tediously slow, but it did work, and we did get to where we want to do when we did an in-place upgrade. But today, the keen eye amongst you may have noticed that I've actually changed the SD card in this Gen 8, which is ESXi 002, which is up here. And I've actually swapped the 16 gig SanDisk micro SD card for a 32 gig industrial strength card. We will see how that plays out. I have mentioned about the use of micro SD cards and USB flash drives with the ESXi. I'm not going to preach and go on about that any longer. So without further ado, I'm going to get into this. So this is covered really. It's not going to be a great deal different to what was covered in how to install and configure VMware vSphere Hypervisor 7, and it's not a great deal different really to doing an in-place upgrade. So the first thing we need to do, and I've already downloaded the HPE custom image or the OEM HPE vendor version of ESXi, and I've checked the MD5 signature, which is 690D40, which agrees there. So the MD5 signature is correct. This is the same ISO that we used for ESXi 001, but we mounted that in ILO. So what I'm going to do now, I've got a 32 gig SanDisk, sorry, Kingston. I've got a, not that it really matters, but I have a 32 gig USB 3 Kingston USB flash drive on my PC. I'm using Rufus and I'm using the portable version. It doesn't actually install on your PC, it just runs. I've selected the ESXi version. I've selected the disk and I'm just going to say start and yes and overwrite. Currently that has the HPE 7.0.3 version because that's what we use to uplift all these servers that we have here. So again, whilst that's actually basically baking that, just a little recap about the VMware compatibility list. If you are installing ESXi 8 for production in your organization, then please make sure that your server is on the hardware compatibility list. If, however, this is for a home lab or testing at home, then okay, not a problem. Of course, one of the little things that we will have to do with these particular servers, which I showed you in the last video, is that we will need to do the Shift and O, and we will have to basically type in the allow legacy CPU equals true to allow us to install ESXi on these hosts. Because in these hosts that we're using here in the lab, they are not compatible with ESXi and will not let us install unless we actually use that flag. So hopefully That is almost completing. I'm going to sort of kind of do this in real time. I'm going to eject the flash drive when it's completed. Okay, so I'm going to close that. I'm going to eject my Kingston flash drive. Excuse me, well, I just disappeared down under the desk to unplug that. I'm going to take that and I'm going to plug that in here in our server. Just make sure that's plugged in. Okay, and I'm going to go back to ILO, and this is ESXi number 2, and we're going to power that on. Waiting. Yeah, it's gone blue. Okay, so it's powering on. Whilst we wait for that to power on, and I must actually remember to select F11 to select the boot menu, and then press number 3 that we're going to boot from USB. I'm wearing my MVE shirt today, so just a plug for those experts there. If you want to vote for your MVE this year, then nominations are now due. Less said that, but I'm not plugging for myself. Don't vote for me. But if there is a member of Experts Exchange that you think has gone above and beyond to help you this year, then please take the time to nominate them. You will see somewhere within the Experts Exchange on their profile, I think you can click a button that turns around and says nominate this person for MVE, and then in January next year at the awards, then hopefully the person that you've actually nominated for an MVE, most valued expert, then they may be able to get one of these glorious t-shirts as well. Note to EE, this has started to get a few holes in it now. Like this is 2016, it feels like an age ago. So can I get an updated one? I think I've worn this one out. Anyway, okay, back to our HP ProLiant. So I'm just going to maximize the screen there. So I'm going to basically say, okay, so you've seen this before. You would have seen this in my last video when we did an in-place upgrade, and that was over ILO. This is local USB flash drive. So we're going to select enter, and hopefully, you know, this is all going to boot far quicker off USB 3, off a USB stick sat in the front of the server. I'm just hitting some buttons down here. Okay, so what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to put this, I'm going to disappear and come back when we're at the wizard, basically, to hit enter to continue, and I'll speed this up in post as well. And welcome back. As you can see, as expected, much faster over USB 3, local USB. Okay, so I'm going to select enter. Now, of course, there's one thing here that I forgot to do. I'm not quite sure whether or not you spotted that, but anyway, for shits and giggles, we're going to do it anyway. I forgot, easily done, to hit Shift and O to type in that allow legacy CPU equals true. So what we're going to expect is, and I'm going to select the generic ultra fast media, which is our 32 gig flash drive. So I'm going to hit enter. What we're going to see is exactly, so I'm going to say install. I'm going to select our generic ultra fast media. I'm going to select install, followed by enter. Okay. Now this is interesting. And we didn't see this in the in-place upgrade, but the installation of ESXi has detected that we've got a USB SD card device. So it wants to optionally select one disk to store the ESX OS data, which allegedly or is the reason possibly for the corruption. So I'm just going to select enter, but it didn't do that on an upgrade because it used the existing information in the upgrade to do that. So just something to bear in mind, that does look like in ESXi now that there is a workaround for the potential corruption of an SD card USB flash drive, and they're giving you the option to basically put that information on local disk. So we'll hit enter and we'll say no, because we don't want to actually overwrite the data, because we might have some virtual machines. So specify password. Remember to remember it, because the only supported mechanism of resetting a password is to reinstall the operating system. Okay, so this is what we're doing expecting. The CPU in this host is not supported by ESXi, which is, as I said, I'd forgotten. So I'm just going to say F11 and we'll reboot. And this time I will remember, after I press F11, 3 to boot from USB, to actually do Shift and O to type in allow legacy CPU equals true. Now this is only something that we need to do because the current operating system ESXi 8 is not compatible with our 1265L V2s because they're old CPUs. If you have a production server on the hardware compatibility list, you will not have to use allow legacy CPU equals true. So whilst that's booting again, I'm going to disappear and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to come back just at the point where I'm doing the Shift and O business. So I'll come back shortly. I've come back early because there's so much going on. So 3. Okay, so we select our installer and then we want to do Shift and O. So we effectively get the Run Weasel CD-ROM boot option. So I'm now going to type allow legacy CPU equals true. Just reading that back to see I've got allow legacy CPU equals true, followed by enter. So it's going to do exactly the same thing again. It's going to load up all the modules, load them all into memory, then run the installer. So I'll come back when we're at the dialog screen and we will continue with the installation. So I'll be back shortly. Okay, and we're back in the room. Okay, again, as I said before, USB flash drive installation much quicker than ILO. Okay, so welcome to the VMware ESXi 8 installation screen. I'm sure you've seen this before. It's not really changed not changed at all, I don't think, over the years. Okay, so we're going to hit enter to continue. I'm going to accept the end user license agreement. F11 is obviously a shortcut to exit full screen. It's going to look at available devices, and we're going to install to our generic ultra fast industrial strength media according to the vendor. They claim it's better than SanDisk. Only time will tell. We're going to do an installation. It must have found a previous version of ESXi, I suspect, on the flash drive. Does surprise me, but you know, we've got bucket loads of them around here. And anyway, so enter continue. Yes, we're going to install the ESX. I think that's missing an I. We're going to install the ESXi OS data on our logical volume. And no, we're not going to. We don't want to repartition it because we want to keep the data that's on it. Okay, so I'm going to select our password. Again, make sure you record it because you cannot change it if you've forgotten it. Okay, so it does actually now tell us that the CPU in this host is not supported, but we can now continue because we use that allow legacy CPU equals true option when we did the shift and O. The installer is configured to install on that, ESX data on that. ESX disk will be repartitioned. So let's click 11. And that's installing. Now, I was actually going to say, I wonder if you can hear the fireworks outside, but you maybe can't hear the fireworks outside because all the background noise is now being removed, hopefully. So here's a little bit of trivia, and maybe you didn't appreciate or realise this. In the UK on Bonfire Night, November the 5th, we throw an effigy of somebody called Guy Fawkes onto the bonfire to burn him. Because back in, I can't give you a date, but historically, Guy Fawkes and the plot basically to blow up the Houses of Parliament in what was called the Gunpowder Plot. Now, Guy Fawkes, in fact, was born and lived just up road in York, city of York. And still to this very day, it is illegal in York to burn an effigy of Guy Fawkes in the city of York, within the city walls of York, and that is a tradition that is still followed today. That you will not find an effigy of Guy Fawkes burnt on a bonfire in the city, inside the city walls of the city of York in Yorkshire. So there you go, just a bit of useless trivia for you to play if it comes up around a table when you're playing Trivial Pursuit this Christmas and somebody asks you about Guy Fawkes, and you can turn around and say, oh yes, I know Guy Fawkes, yes, he was born in York, in Yorkshire. And yeah, so we throw a guy on the bonfire on bonfire night, which generally is, you know, your old clothes stuffed with newspaper, with a mask on, and you throw them on the bonfire. So there you go. And many years ago, and I am going back a few years now, you used to find that children who would save up for fireworks on bonfire night would do something called penny for the guy, whereby before bonfire night, you would wheel your guy that you're going to put on the bonfire around the estate, knocking on people's doors, asking them for a penny for the guy, and they would used to give you a few pennies, and then you used to save all those pennies up, and then basically you'd have some fireworks around the bonfire as well. Not quite sure really that penny for the guy is done today. But there was a time, and my brother will contest to this, that my younger brother had a very, very scruffy Parker back in the 70s. And if you're familiar with Oasis and the parkas that they wear, then you know what I'm talking about. But my brother used to have a green parka, and you could never ever get him out of the parka. He wore it all the time, and virtually almost wore it to bed. But it was a scruffy old thing and falling apart, and probably didn't really look like the sort of thing that you'd actually basically put on a guy. So in fact, we actually put my brother in a pram. We stuffed some straw and some paper up his sleeves, and we put a mask on his face, and we actually wheeled him round doing Penny for the Guy in the 70s. There were a few people that did try to set a light to him, but that's another thing. I digress. Anyway, so I'm not going to waffle on anymore about Guy Fawkes Night and Bonfire Night. And you probably can't hear the fireworks going off outside the window here, which does surprise me, because we live in a very rural area, and I don't know where the fireworks are. But anyway, so I'm going to come back when we're going to get ready to reboot this server in a minute. So I will be back shortly. Okay, so nice and quick, and in post edit I'll shrink this down, speed it up, so we get this down to 30 minutes. Anyway, so I'm going to hit enter to reboot, and this shouldn't take very long for server to reboot, and then it will start reading that information off our SD industrial strength SD flash card. So I'm going to bob off, and I'll speed all this up in post edit, and I will come back and summarize when we've booted our operating system. And I'm back, and then we've got our two-tone screen again, which is nothing actually specifically to do with the ESXi. It's to do with the recording process of me actually turning the cam on and off. There we go. That's for some strange reason. If I turn myself off, it goes back to yellow and blue. Anyway, so there we go. There's a VMware ESXi 8, VMware vSphere Hypervisor version 8 installed on another HP ProLiant microserver Gen 8, using that magic allow legacy CPU equals true. And I'm glad to see that it has actually picked up its IP address, which is leased out to it through DHCP 192.168.168.130. ESXi 001 is 129. So that's all I'm going to do in this video. And I'm going to juggle these videos a little bit round to the last series I did, because what we're going to do in the next video is we're going to briefly connect to ESXi 001, ESXi 002, just check them out, just check the networking, just make some changes to NTP to make sure they're actually basically getting some time configuration, check the data stores, rename the data stores in that video. And then what we're going to do in the next video, I'm actually going to install VMware vCenter Server 8, or brackets VCSA 8, because it's only available now as a Linux appliance. Rather than usually, I'd have left the installation of vCenter Server to the very end in about part 20. So we'll do it way up front. And then we'll add these two hosts to vCenter Server, and then we'll actually start doing the creation of our virtual machines, checking our ISOs, etc., using vCenter Server. So a little bit longer than I thought, but I will actually post edit this and get this down to 30 minutes. So thank you very much for watching, and happy 5th of November bonfire night to you. Anyway, so thank you very much, and goodbye from me.